Welcome, everybody, to Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hobson of the Punch Drunk Critics. And on this week's show, we are going back down the rabbit hole. We are taking the red pill. It's the red pill, I think. We're taking the red pill. And we are going to talk about The Matrix Resurrections, the first film in the Matrix franchise in, almost 20 years? Something like that. Yeah. So Keanu Reeves is back. Carrie-Anne Moss is back. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is in there as Morpheus. My girl Jessica Henwick, who you know I love from Iron Fist, she's in this too. A lot of people in this. We're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about the film Licorice Pizza from my favorite director, the director whose name inspired our website, Punch Drunk Critics. That is Paul Thomas Anderson. We're going to talk about that as well. And as you can see, holding right here is my buddy Tim Gordon. All right, Tim, it's unmuting you, man. It's asking you to unmute. You have to unmute it. You have to unmute it, Tim. There
you got a lot of technical requirements, man, on this show, man. I just normally show up on the set. I got to do my own sound. Like, what's up?
Oh, it's crazy. I know, it's insane. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm fine, man. It's the end of another year. I don't know what that means, man. For people who do what we do, stuff's canceled, stuff's moved back, pandemics.
Yeah, man. It's been another crazy year. Can you believe we're about to enter year 3 of the pandemic too? It's just kind of, it's insane. And the movie business has shifted all around. And the Matrix comes out at an interesting time too, because this were a few years ago. I think it probably would have been a much bigger deal that it was coming out. But coming out now, in the midst of a lot of as movies are starting to rebound now, like you just had Spider-Man: No Way Home cross $1 billion, first movie to do that during the pandemic era.
And well, trust me, it'll be the last, Travis. That is not going to be duplicated by anybody else anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, then again, I don't know what Doctor Strange is going to do in a few months, so we'll see. But
MCU films, yes,
right, MCU films, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so Matrix comes out now. Resurrections, directed by Leonard Wachowski. Lily Wachowski is not on board for this one. Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss is back, like I was saying, and this story, I'm not going to spoil anything, but essentially you have Neo being brought back into the Matrix, except he does not seem to remember much about his past, everything that was going on, but he does have a connection to Trinity, who is also not remembering everything about her past as well. And we're not going to go into all the details about why that is, but I want to get Tim's opinion about the Matrix Resurrections and what he thought of it as a whole. What were your thoughts, man?
It's been, like you said, 20 years, man, since we kind of went down this trilogy. And I don't think I would be speaking out of turn that most people really liked the first one, and their interest kind of waned on 2 and 3. So there was a lot of excitement that they were bringing it back. And, we got casting news with the months leading up to it that they were filming, that Keanu's back, Carrie Moss is back, Jada Pinkett Smith is back. Of course, we have some new players in the universe. As it relates to this latest film, I remember sitting there at the screening, and there's a lot of buzz in the theater. Everybody's excited.
Yeah.
And the first 20 minutes, man, you're kind of watching it, and you're like, And as the movie progresses and it kind of lays out its plot, I felt the way a lot of people mixed on this movie, Travis. You have some people, man, who really kind of like the return and the nostalgia and seeing, a lot of the principal characters that they knew. I think for me personally, I think part of what my disconnect is that, The Matrix, when it initially dropped, was this really groundbreaking film, man. It introduced us to bullet time and introduced us to a whole lot of elements that we had not seen on film. And over the course of the last 2 decades, man, the technology is somewhat caught up. Okay. And I was waiting to see what this film could introduce again to kind of like push movie making forward.
Yeah.
And it ain't a lot there, man. That was my issue. And I think the story is a little confusing as well. And I think that's been another complaint that people have always had about the Matrix, about, how you're trying to tell this kind of sci-fi epic tale. And I don't know, man. It was funny. We talked off air about this. This would have been a great one to have talked about on Around Town, because, it has, we can't spoil it. So there's enough there that you could just come in, interject your comments, and, you make the decision. I'm gonna leave it up to you. But if you asking me, not really. Not really a huge fan of this Matrix film. I think it's better, Travis, than the second and third versions, but it's far below the first version, which I think is still the best.
Yeah, Tim's referring to WETA Around Town, which is the show that we do on local channel, channel 26. Yeah, see, I'm a little bit mixed on this too, like a lot of people. Now, see, the thing for me is I was watching, like you do talk the first 20 minutes. When I was watching it, I was like, they're basically just doing this, the first movie. Like, they're just doing the same things. And I was like, am I supposed to feel differently about it right now? I'm not sure what's going on. And I was just kind of like watching it, and I was like, they're doing it, but I'm not that excited about it. And I'm like, all right, they're rehashing the first movie, okay. And then we kind of get into, what's going on with Mr. Anderson, Keanu Reeves' character Neo in the regular world. And he's this video game creator, video game designer, and the movie is very self-referential. It is a very self-aware movie. So there's a lot of references to sequels and remakes and rehashes and whether or not they're worth it and all this kind of stuff. And is that what all people want is rehashes? Do they just want a new bullet time and all this kind of stuff? But we need to make the new bullet time and all this kind of stuff. And, and okay, I get it. That is, if you're going to make this movie, I suppose, being aware of the cultural landmark that the first films were is a fine place to be. But at the same time, acknowledging that you're aware of your old ideas is not a new idea. I'd rather you just make some new ideas, and and it doesn't do that. And that was kind of my issue with it. Now, once the plot gets going, I got a little bit more interested in it. When it stopped referencing itself over and over and over again, even the kung fu battle between Morpheus and Neo was essentially the same fight. And I was like, what am I supposed to feel about it? Like, am I supposed to just like, I don't know. I don't get it. I like, it's interesting to watch, but it's not exciting to watch because I've seen it already. I've seen this fight. So it wasn't doing much for me. Once the plot got going, and I think this is where Lana Wachowski does, and her writers do something interesting, which is kind of tweak our perceptions of who's powerful and who's not within the Matrix. And this becomes a little bit more of a Trinity story and about her power and relative to Neo, because we always think of Neo and her as the sidekick, but we don't think about what strengths she has. And I think that was a really cool idea to bring, especially if you're going to have a female director behind it. I think this is a very female-focused sort of film as well. I think that's a pretty cool idea if they want to go to take this further. That's a good place to go. I'm not saying the movie's bad. And like I said, I actually was interested in once the plot got going. It's just, it took a long time for it to get there. And like I said, I'd rather see new ideas than acknowledgement of old ideas, which is what it was for a little bit too long.
Well, it's funny you would say that, man, because it's almost as if we all, and you said sort of similar, something similar to what I said. We went in there to go trying to figure out, like, what are you going to do new? And a lot of the film is spent with us revisiting stuff that we clearly have seen and remember. And I don't really think
Morpheus is annoying for that in this movie. Morpheus, literally the only thing he does in this movie is reference the Fishburne version of Morpheus over and over again, to the point where I was like, I don't really care about this Morpheus because he's just talking about you must have just brought the other Morpheus back and just had him do the other one. And just do the
but I was gonna say though, Travis, from the technology, like, did you feel was there anything in here that you saw was like, oh man, that was cool? We hadn't seen that before. I'm talking about from a visual standpoint of like any fights, any sci-fi action movie. Was there anything in there you saw that was new?
No, there wasn't. And I think that's on us that we think that it's supposed to.
Mm.
I think it was kind of referring to that when it was making comments, but hey, we need to have a new bullet time and all this kind of stuff. And it was kind of jokingly saying stuff like that. It's on us that we expect that it's supposed to be as groundbreaking as the first one, when that's not what it's probably its goal was ever to be. And it's not, they didn't set out to be groundbreaking in every single movie. They just were. So for us to kind of like keep that expectation on it is on us, and not necessarily on them.
Well, having said all that, man, somebody asked me about 2 weeks before this movie came out, and they said, there's all this buzz around Spider-Man No Way Home. Why aren't people talking about the Matrix like that? I said, you'll see. You'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it came out at a really bad time. I think it's just not a good time for it to come out. There's a lot of stuff that's going on around it in terms of other movies, and I just don't think this was I didn't look at the box office this week, but I'm assuming it wasn't great, especially for the fact that it's also on HBO Max, which also hurts it, the way it's hurt every single movie for Warner Brothers this year by having it free. I watched it at home on HBO Max because I obviously had COVID, so I didn't get to go to the screenings.
But you bring this up, Travis. I'm thinking about now as we are ramping back up again with Omicron. How does because every studio is looking at Spider-Man's numbers and they're thinking, oh man, Spider-Man made $1 billion. I think that's an MCU exclusive place to be in. Like you said earlier, the next time that might happen is when Doctor Strange comes out. But I don't see any other movie that is going to bring people out in huge numbers to the box office, and nor should they right now, because you just talked about COVID. I had it a year ago right now. The last place I really want to be, and we talked about this offline, I really want to be in a theater right now again, especially if we like at an upcoming film festival where you got to sit there multiple days and watch movies. And it scares me right now, man. So how do you feel this is going to play out as it relates to the early slate, at least the first quarter of 2022?
Yeah, I think we're going to see, first quarter of 2022, the first really big movie that we have coming out is Morbius, which is also a Sony Marvel movie, just like Spider-Man is. But Morbius won't do the numbers that Spider-Man will. It'll probably do something close to what Venom 2 did, maybe, possibly. But it's Jared Leto, so maybe not. Jared Leto sucks. Yeah, I think we're going to see a big slump return after a while here. But I think you're right that this is a Marvel exclusive thing where you're going to see people who will risk everything to see a Marvel movie as long as it's a theatrical exclusive. If it's like Black Widow, which you can see on Disney Plus, that a lot of people are going to stay home. But when you make these, people love Marvel, man. The thing they'll risk their lives for is to see a Marvel movie in theaters. And I can't fault them, because I would do it too, and I did do it. I saw it in the theater, and I intend to go back and see it again in the theater. So I mean, I'm doing it too. So I mean, what am I supposed to say? Sorry, I'm distracted by my cat in the background, my new cat. Those who watched the show last week knew that I was a day away from getting my new cat, and now my cat Nick Furry is back there in the background on my bed, being cute. All right, there we go. Anyway, I imagine he's going to be a lot in the future. So here's my question to you about when it comes to the Matrix. Do you think they should continue on with this now? See, considering how the movie ended, which I think is fairly open-ended, do you think they should continue on and do another one? Interested in it.
Well, I think not. I think it was wonderful for us to revisit, but if we're going to begin another series of the films in quality going down story-wise, we've already been there. Like we talked earlier about, we've already seen this film before, and it didn't really break any new ground. Yeah, you can let this story go, man. I mean, but here's the question, Travis. If it makes enough money, they will not. And that is the issue.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I'm like, I personally, I don't know where the stories continue to go. Like, to me, it felt like this story, like I said, a big chunk of it was just rehashing the first movie. And once the plot got going, the plot wasn't really about the Matrix. It was about Trinity and Neo. Now, I love the fact that it focused on their love story and how it's bigger than, bigger than reality even. I thought that was a great angle for the movie to take, and an interesting one that I was into. But now we've had that story, and I don't know what the next story for the Matrix could be that's compelling. The reason why those first two sequels didn't work is because they spent a lot of time outside of the Matrix. And outside of the Matrix, not that cool. And in fact, it looks dungy and kind of crappy, and it's not slick, and but it was also a necessary story component. You couldn't spend the entire movie within the Matrix. There's a lot of that in this movie too for me. And I was like, all right, well, yeah, they're outside the Matrix. This isn't that great looking. I don't know what's next for these movies. I kind of want this to be the end, but at the same time, it's a popular franchise, so I know it won't be.
Warner Brothers has a lot of money, and they'll just keep waving it at you when they think that you can create something that'll continue to bring people back to the box office. So it's going to be interesting. I'm with you. I don't really think that there's too many more stories that they can tell. I thought, to your point, I thought that once it got going and how they kind of given us the new plot, that was kind of interesting. And it was also interesting how they kind of tied certain elements in that we were familiar with, but presented them to us in a different way. But yeah, man, you need to let the Matrix go, man, and put your money and energies into something new.
We talked about how self-aware the movie was. There's a part in the movie where Neo's character, who made this video game trilogy basically based off the Matrix, he's basically told that the parent company is going to make a sequel to the game, whether he's part of it or not. I think that was Lana Wachowski talking. I believe that's what Warner Brothers was probably going to do. I believe they're probably going to continue the Ford franchise with or without the Wachowskis' involvement. And I think even if the Wachowskis aren't involved in this next one, there will be more Matrix. You can tell other stories within the Matrix. Like, I remember the Animatrix spin-off, the animated movies that shorts that they did years ago, which were really good. You can tell other stories within the Matrix. I just don't know if you need to keep telling the Neo Trinity story. I think you need to do something new with a whole batch of different characters who maybe aren't fighting the Matrix. Maybe they're doing something else, existing within or something. But you need to find a different angle. I
was going to ask you, and it's not as if you're in the room when they're writing the screenplay, but is there something from any of these other three films that you think jumps out as a place that they could start and go, let's take Neo and Trinity out and then focus it on this person or this
I kind of liked that Bug story where she was just a regular person who was discovered by seeing Neo when he was about to jump off the building. I kind of would have liked to have seen what happened to her in the period between, but like, there's got to be like an everyman story that's in there somewhere. There's got to be something. A story of someone else who got pulled from our reality into the Matrix, who took the red pill. Because there's dozens of people in this little rebellion, so there must be a million different stories they could tell. But I just don't think we need to see the story of Neo as the one anymore. I don't think we need that story. I think that story was done. I think that story was done 20 years ago, if I'm honest. But I think they need to do something new. That's my angle on it.
No, I got you, man. I totally agree, man. And so we both kind of mixed on the Matrix.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about one more movie before we get out of here. That is my favorite movie of the year, my favorite director, Licorice Pizza. But I don't know what Tim Gordon, the man behind FilmGordon.com, the president of LAFCA, what does he think of Licorice Pizza? Starring Cooper Hoffman, the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Alana Haim, Bradley Cooper. What do you think of Licorice Pizza, Tim?
I was just listening to your intro. That was good. Licorice Pizza is interesting, man. And I think and when I say this, you, along with anybody who does this job, will really understand this. Mm-hmm. When you get to the end of the year, and we are literally getting slammed with one story after the next. And it's not as if we've seen Licorice Pizza like last week. You and I have seen Licorice Pizza like weeks ago, right?
Yep.
So I hate to use this phrase, but it's true. These movies all start to meld together to me, man. So it's funny when you said, let's talk about Licorice Pizza. I'm like, you realize, Travis, I haven't seen Licorice Pizza again since I saw it like a month and some change ago. But what I remember about the film is it had a certain kind of energy. And I always talk about film being a director's medium, right? And I happen to like Paul Thomas Anderson, right? I mean, I like the films that he's made. And I like his sensibility, the way he tells stories. And in this one, which really threw me off, is that smartly, he cast a couple of people who people aren't familiar with. I would say 9 out of 10 people aren't familiar with either of these, the leads of Licorice Pizza, right?
Yep.
And you root the story in the 1970s, and you kind of tell this story that's fictional, that has a couple of people who are real people, kind of, and maybe several people who are really real people who are interspersed into this story. And it's just a warm sort of coming of age, feel good story about this kid who's trying to woo this woman. I remember calling Travis up after I saw it. I was like, how old was this woman supposed to be? Because that would be the one area, even though people are lavishing praise on this movie, that I would have pronounced it a little more, right? Right. The fact that you cast this actress, I think her name is Elena Haim.
Elena Haim, yeah.
Okay, you cast her, and she's wonderful, and she's got this Streisand-esque sort of quality. But I really, and I still to this day, Travis, don't get that there's a 10-year difference between the two of them, 2 or 3, perhaps. But I think if you would have cast a different actress, maybe you take away from some of the charm of the movie if it was an actress we knew. But you could have cast another actress in that vein who's unknown, where it's a little more pronounced in order to really kind of sell the story. And that, if I have one thing that I didn't like about the film, it would be that distinction. But everything else I thought really, really, really worked well. All the storytelling, their interaction, some of these wild, wacky scenarios that the film presents. I liked everything about Licorice Pizza. Now, you like it because I know, Punch Drunk Love and Punch Drunk Critics, that's your guy. This is not my Christopher Nolan moment. I like Paul Thomas, but I just like him. Travis loves Paul Thomas Anderson.
But at the same time, as I made clear in my review and in my other discussions about Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson hasn't made a movie that I've loved in a very long time. I've not, ever since, I would say, like, I like There Will Be Blood, but in subsequent viewings, I don't like it as much. I haven't liked a lot since then. Like, I didn't like Inherent Vice at all. Phantom Thread was fine the first time. It's kind of forgettable to me now. He hasn't done much for me. This movie, Licorice Pizza, feels like a return to the Paul Thomas Anderson that I like. It's the kind of shaggy San Bernardino 1970s thing. My favorite movie of all time is Boogie Nights, the same time period. My other favorite movies from him, Magnolia, stuff like that. So I Punch Drunk Love, of course, which I love. But when he gets this time period, this era, this space, this is what he knows, and this is what he's really great at. And what I kind of like about Licorice Pizza is that it feels a little bit all over the place, like a lot of his movies do. They feel like they're almost like hangout movies, which are one of my favorite kinds of movies, where you just kind of feel like you're hanging out with a bunch of characters and they're doing stuff and you're just kind of tagging along. That's what this movie feels like. You got this lead character played by Cooper Hoffman, who, to me, has a lot of the mannerisms of his father. And I don't know if he knows it or not, but he does. And that to me was interesting to watch. But he's kind of like this, if he wanted to grow up to be a 2-bit hustler, he could. I mean, the guy is like one of those guys who just, He's always selling something. He's not selling a thing, he's selling himself. The first thing we see is the first moment we see him, he's trying to sell himself to Alana, and that's how he spends the entire movie, basically trying to sell himself to her. But we talk about the age difference, and this is the conversation I have with a lot of people about that age difference, because it's about 10 years. They're not that different, like in terms of maturity. And the movie itself, I had to explain this to a friend who was wondering if she should go see it. It's not a sexual movie. Like, it's not a movie in which these two people are like having sex and sleeping around, and they're just always kind of will they or won't they sort of thing going on. That's not really happening. Like, we know he thinks she's attractive, and we know that throughout the entire movie, but he doesn't sit around pining for her. He goes and he does his thing, lives his life. He has a couple other girlfriends. He starts businesses, which she kind of gravitates to because, one, she's got nothing going on in her life, but two, she just likes this kid. She likes being around him. They are friends through 99% of this movie. And then there's like 1% where the thing that you think is going to happen finally does happen. And by that point, I think they've kind of earned it. So it doesn't really bother me that much. I never thought about the age gap until it's actually referenced in the movie itself, like one time. So it didn't bother me all that much. But like all other Paul Thomas Anderson movies, it goes off on flights of fancy. So like I always reference the Boogie Nights scene where Thomas Jane's character, Todd Parker, comes literally crashing into the movie. Like, you hear the screeching wheels and he comes walking in. This movie goes off on tangents like that too. And it's like, you got the Bradley Cooper scene where he comes in, the whole waterbed mess. You got all sorts of stuff happening in this movie that is a lot of fun. And they're the kind of Paul Thomas Anderson diversions that I love. So, I mean, to me, this movie's like, it's not perfect. It's probably a bit too long, like a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson movies are. But I can't think of anything I would necessarily want to pull out. Like, I want to keep all that stuff in there because it adds so much to the character of the film. So I love Licorice Pizza. Like I said, it's my favorite movie of the year. I haven't done my top 20 list yet. That'll be next week. But this is going to be up there. So, yeah, I think.
Well, I suspect it'll either be number 1 or 2 for you.
Probably
the way you talked about it. So
probably number 1. It's probably gonna be number
wow. Watch this. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be number 1. I don't know what the other 19 will be, but that one's gonna be up there for sure. All right, well, Tim, this has been great, man. I love having you on here to talk about these couple movies, man. What do you got going on right now? Where can people find you? What have you got coming up?
Well, we're in the middle of award season, so of course you can always find me over at thefilmgordon.com. Travis, who refused to help us publicize the 22nd annual Black Reel Awards.
I didn't get the thing. You told me to publicize something and then I didn't get anything.
Because he said no. But
anyway, I did not say no.
The final voting for the Black Reel Awards are going on right now, and there's going to be an announcement coming up pretty soon that I think you're going to be very excited about, Travis, because you've known me for a minute and what we've been doing. So that's kind of what I've been up to, man. But I'm glad to see that you are well again, because I was a little fearful because anytime a friend tells you the news that we've both now gone through, and we're not out the woods, Travis, there's no guarantee that it won't happen again to either of us. So
no, it's a reminder to stay safe no matter what, because I had all my shots, all 3 of them, and I still got it. And and I'm thankful that I got it now and not a year ago when you got it. It might have killed my ass, but I'm thankful that I'm through it. I'm feeling better, and that everyone I know who's had it, including you, have gotten better from it too. So
yes, sir. But look, welcome back though. But be careful, man. I mean, I know you got some other stuff going on. We've had stuff canceled, but just be careful, bro. Be vigilant.
Sundance will be interesting.
It will be indeed.
Sundance will be interesting.
Yes, sir.
I know they sent the email out saying everybody needs to be boosted now. You can't just. I think that's going to actually significantly reduce the number of people that come. Because I know if you're saying they have to be not just have their vaccines but also boosted, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that might not show. So. And honestly, I don't know anybody else who's going. I don't know Normally, I know people who are headed that way. Well, Chris is going to go, I think. Then again, he's in Canada, so things could change.
Hey, man, like I said, man, I think this situation is fluid, Travis, and I think Sundance, along with a lot of organizations, have been caught off guard, man, because we thought we were past this for the better part, and then we had this huge kind of burst. Now it's definitely gonna be interesting, man. I definitely, I think about you and I worry about you because I know you just have this kind of devil may care. I'm doing it anyway. I'm like, all right, Travis. Let me know how it works out, man.
Okay, but that's not true though. I don't have a devil may care attitude about it. It's just, I mean, I've been safe for the last year and a half, 2 years of this, and I'm still keeping myself safe. But at the same time, I have a job to do and I have a thing to do, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it in the safest way I possibly can, and I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to be safe, and I expect that everybody else who go there will be safe too. If they have regulations for that, then I'm gonna assume that people stick to it. That's my hope. So we'll see.
All right, man. You see me look.
All right, so thanks again, Tim Gordon of thefilmgordon.com. I'm sure look out for that Black Reel Awards announcement. I'm actually curious now to see what this thing is going to be. So
I'm glad that's an effect. They call that an effective teaser.
Yeah, it's a teaser.
But it actually is going to be huge news. So I mean, I'm not just saying that just to mess with you. I mean, if you really want to know, we can talk afterwards. But yeah,
and that'll be when you also announce that Journal for Jordan won Best Picture, right?
I still haven't seen that movie, man. Have you seen it yet?
Haven't you seen a Journal for Jordan? I mean, it's out.
No, I mean, they had a screening, but I was like, I'm not going to the theater to watch that movie. I mean, if it doesn't have Spider-Man in it, I'm not going to that. I'm not going to a theater to see a movie. You went to a screening and saw that?
I haven't been to a screening in almost a month.
They tried that strategy that you just discussed. Like, we only go in theater only. Yeah, okay. Nobody's seen Journal for Jordan, man.
I've seen a Journal for Jordan. I had a link to it, but
oh no, I didn't get a link. So
okay, yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I didn't review it though. Like Cortland reviewed it for us. I didn't.
Was it good?
It's
say no more, man.
Mediocre. It's not Denzel's best. Then again, I don't think Denzel's a great filmmaker. If I'm honest. He's okay. He's all right, but he's not a great filmmaker. I'd rather see him in front of the camera, honestly. So, anyway.
And it's funny. We don't have time to talk about it now, but I definitely will call you because all of a sudden Denzel Washington is getting a lot of love in the actor race for a film that I thought, or a performance that nobody was talking about. And I said, this would be so Oscar that they would give Denzel Washington an Oscar this year for a film when there are other people who I think are, I'm not going to say better, but who have showier, more high profile performances. And all of a sudden, here comes Denzel Washington again. He's just like, you can't kill him.
I will say this. Denzel Washington is the best thing about the Tragedy of Macbeth. I think that movie is, look, everybody knows me and Shakespeare, I don't really care. But if there's one thing that's awesome about the Tragedy of Macbeth, it's Denzel. Like, he's great in that movie. If he were to win, I would not complain. But at the same time, yeah, I agree. Like, if you really need to give it to a black person, give it to Will Smith for King Richard, please. I mean, there's something like if you have to give it to a black person, give it to him.
But it's funny. Will Smith, his whole entire career, the reason he doesn't have an Oscar is he gave a great performance in Ali. Denzel was in Training Day. Years later, he does The Pursuit of Happiness. He's up again, and Forrest Whitaker takes him out. The third time, concussion.
Was that 10 years, The Last King of Scotland?
Yeah.
Damn.
And then he's up again in concussion, and suddenly Denzel Washington had Flight that year. So I just don't know. Will Smith always simply runs into the hot guy, and the hot guy normally is Denzel Washington. But this year I thought when you saw King Richard, I was like, you know what? I I think Denzel might go down this year, but the folks like Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, what is he, a 6-time nominee, 7-time nominee?
Yeah, something. It's funny.
Yeah, man.
I was just thinking about Will Smith the other day. I was doing one of my videos for Joe Blow, and I was writing it for House Party. And I was reminded of the fact that Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff were the original two people who were supposed to star in that. Like they were the movie was written for them. Wow. And I remember, and I had to be reminded of it. And I was like, when I was researching it, and I was like, I forgot that New Line tried to strong arm them into starring in it because they got sued over Nightmare on My Street because they used so much Freddy Krueger in that movie when they weren't supposed to. So they got sued by New Line. Mm-hmm. So New Line was like, you can either pay or star in this movie. And ultimately, Reggie Hudlin was like, let's not do that. Let's get Kid and Play and not force these people to be in this movie. But I was just thinking about that. I was like, Will Smith, I forgot Will Smith was almost in House Party. God, that would have been a different movie.
Well, you talk about Will Smith almost being the House Party. We talked about Matrix
dance battle. If you had had Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff, you wouldn't have had that awesome dance battle. It would have been different.
Well, I think what we know, it's funny now because I got Will's autobiography for Christmas and I've started reading it. And his backstory as a storyteller, Will Smith is fascinating to me. He really is. And, you think about when you watch The Matrix now, that movie, I don't even think it would have been as groundbreaking or popular if you'd have put Will Smith in the Keanu Reeves character. I just don't even see that movie working because Will has too much charisma to play a character like that. I just don't, because we always see Will Smith no matter what he does. Right. So right. I think House Party is a very different movie with Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff. I think The Matrix would be a very different movie with Will Smith. And God only knows, are there any other movies that Will passed on? Oh, Django Unchained. How do you think Will Smith plays as Jamie Foxx, that main character in that film?
I actually think that would have been interesting if he had done that role. I remember reporting on that all them years ago that he was the one that they were pursuing, but he ultimately didn't want to do it because it was too violent, and that really wasn't his type of. That's not his slot. Like doing that kind of movie is not the Will Smith slot, right? So he turned it down. But that would have been interesting to see. It might have added a whole new dynamic to the film actually to have somebody like him play that kind of character. I actually would have liked to have seen that. Jamie Foxx was really good in it. Ask me how many times I've watched Django Unchained though, like not that often. But I would be interested. I would have really been interested to see Will Smith do that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's one of those great mysteries, the great unknown, man. Of when you hear these people who attach to projects and go, man, that would have been nice had we. Now maybe not.
Now you've got me wanting to invite Clayton on here to ask him about the possibility of Denzel taking the best actor from Will again.
Well, it's funny because Clayton told you and I when we were in Middleburg several months ago, like, man, this is Will's to lose. What happens to that?
Yeah, no, we're referring to our friend Clayton Davis over at Variety right now, which having him in that spot now is extra funny because whatever he says, people seem to believe.
Wow.
No, that's not an insult. I mean, but it's just true. Like his position is such that when he says something is a contender, it's immediately a contender, whether it was before or not. And that's such as the power of being the awards editor at Variety.com.
but here's my question for you, Travis. A lot of our colleagues, you talk about Clayton Davis, Wilson Morales, Sean Edwards, folks like that.
I don't know who that second person was you named, but go ahead.
Okay, well, whatever, man. A lot of those guys saw the Tragedy of Macbeth early, like when it was at the New York Film Festival when it premiered. Yep. And I remembered everybody to a man was like, Denzel's okay. Nobody thought that Denzel Washington literally had a shot this year in the Best Actress race. And suddenly now I look up and he is surging toward the lead. And I went, what changed between October and December? Like more guild members saw it. and decided that they really like Denzel. I'm very curious and would love to explore this more, because this to me would be the story of the season. Because normally when Denzel Washington really has a strong performance, people triumph it, they herald it very early, they talk about it for months. Like when a couple of years ago when he was up for Fences, everybody was like, "Hey man, it's Denzel Washington." But this year he did something that is very uncharacteristically Denzel Washington. He hasn't been out there on the road campaigning. He did his performance. And then, the buzz sort of built without him. And if he can surge to not, because I assume he's going to get a nomination for best actor for this. So but if he really surges and wins this year, I'd be like, wow. You'd have to explain that to me, because as a guy on the inside, I'm trying to understand, where's all of this buzz? Where's it emanating from?
It takes just a few people to say that you were great. That's really all it takes. It takes a few.
Wow.
It takes a few, and it drives the momentum, man. That's the way it goes.
Wow. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch, man. We're about 3 months away from the Oscars. Literally, this weekend is like 3 months away. So,
yeah.
Long time, man.
Assuming it doesn't get postponed or anything either, but who knows?
The Oscars are like Travis Hobson, man. The show must go on. We will have the Oscars, whether we do it like they did it last year. They'll go back to Union Station, man, and have a small room and do it again. But they got to do something depending on how it fleshes out.
Yeah, I like that little room they had before. Anyway, all right, we were going to be out of here like 10 minutes ago, and then we started talking about Denzel Washington's Oscar chances. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you, Tim Gordon, thefilmgordon.com. Go and check it out. Look out for that Black Row Awards announcement from him as well. Tim's the creator and the president of that, and he's done a good job. And I don't give him credit for it, but I'll give him a little bit right now. He's done a great job with that. So anyway, all right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hobson. You can check me every day at punchdrunkcritics.com. You can find me on Twitter at punchycritic, and you can find Punch Drunk Critics there at PDC Movies. Thank you very much. I will see you next week. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.